The phone rang at 2:17 p.m. I remember the time because that was the exact moment my life split into a before and an after. "Mrs. Holloway," a man said carefully, as if every word might explode. "I'm calling from North Shore Private Banking. I need you to confirm something immediately." I frowned, balancing the phone between my shoulder and ear while wiping peanut butter off my grandson's hands. "Confirm what? My husband handles the accounts. I don't usually—" There was a pause. Too long. "Ma'am," he said again, voice lowering, "your husband and your daughter just attempted to move 7 figures out of your trust, claiming you're medically unfit to approve transactions." I laughed, a short, confused sound. "That's ridiculous. I'm standing in my kitchen right now. My daughter is supposed to be at work. My husband is at a doctor's appointment." The banker didn't laugh with me. "They've submitted documents, signed, notarized, video verified." My hand froze in midair. "Video of what?" I asked. "Of you," he said quietly, "signing everything away." Dear listeners, welcome. If this story reaches something deep inside you, support the channel by liking, subscribing, and telling me where you're listening from. Your comments remind me that these stories don't disappear into silence, they travel. Now, listen carefully. The kitchen smelled like burnt toast and dish soap. Ordinary smells. Safe smells. My youngest grandson tugged at my sleeve, asking for juice. Life was normal. Too normal for the sentence I'd just heard. "I think there's been a mistake," I said, forcing calm. "I haven't signed anything. I haven't even been to a bank in months. That's why I'm calling, because something is very wrong." My knees weakened, and I sat down at the small breakfast table I'd paid off 20 years ago, the table where I helped my children with homework, where I signed every check that built the life they were now trying to bury me under. "So, who notarized it?" I asked. He swallowed. I could hear it. "A private legal consultant named Martin Klein. He specializes in guardianship transitions." Guardianship. The word tasted like rust. "So," I said slowly, "they're not stealing from me." "No, ma'am," he answered. "They're erasing you." An hour earlier, my husband had kissed my forehead and said, "Try not to spoil the kids too much." My daughter texted, "Love you, Mom, rest today." And all the while they were filming my funeral with me still breathing. I stood up so fast the chair scraped loudly across the floor. The boys looked at me, startled. "Grandma needs to make a quick trip," I said gently. "You're going next door to Mrs. Alvarez, okay?" "But you promised cookies," one of them said. I smiled. "Some promises," I replied, grabbing my purse, "are better kept later." The drive into the city felt unreal, like I was floating above the road instead of touching it. 40 years earlier, I had learned how systems work, how lies hide inside paperwork, how betrayal wears clean clothes and familiar faces. They thought I was tired. They thought age made me slow. They thought love made me blind. What they forgot was that I built everything they wanted to steal, and I still had the keys. The elevator doors closed with a soft, metallic sigh, and suddenly the city noise disappeared. Just me, my reflection in brushed steel, and the truth settling into my bones. I didn't look like a woman about to be erased. I looked like a grandmother in flat shoes with a tote bag and tired eyes. That was their first mistake. The bank's private floor was quiet, carpet swallowing sound, walls lined with framed photographs of smiling executives and grateful clients. The kind of place where people believed theft only happened loudly, with guns and masks, not with signatures and smiles. The banker was already waiting when I stepped out. Mid-30s, crisp suit, hands clasped too tightly. "Mrs. Holloway," he said, relief and fear mixed together. "Thank you for coming so quickly." I said there was video. I'd like to see it. He hesitated. "Before that, there's something else." Of course there was. "They didn't come alone. Your daughter brought a woman with her. She claimed to be your private caregiver." Caregiver? I nearly laughed. "I've never had a caregiver," I said. "I know," he replied softly. "That's why I stalled the transaction." He led me into a small glass conference room, the kind designed to feel transparent while keeping secrets perfectly contained. He tapped a tablet, turned it toward me, and pressed play. The screen flickered. There I was, or something wearing my face. Same hairstyle, same pearl earrings I wore to church, same blue cardigan I'd owned for years, the one that never left my bedroom closet. She sat at a polished table, posture slightly off, hands trembling just enough to look frail. "My name is Eleanor Grace Holloway," the woman said, voice thin, rehearsed. "I am no longer capable of managing my financial affairs." Behind her, just barely in frame, stood my daughter, my child. Her hand rested lightly on the back of the chair, not supportive, not loving, possessive, like you'd touch furniture you already owned. My husband stepped into view next, placing a folder on the table. "Mom has been confused lately," my daughter said to the camera. "We're just doing what's best." I felt something inside me go very still. The banker paused the video. They were very convincing, too convincing. That's when I checked the biometric layer. "And?" I asked. "The facial scan passed, but the behavioral markers didn't." I raised an eyebrow. "Hand dominance was wrong, micropauses in speech didn't match your historical recordings, and," he swallowed, "she signed your name with hesitation. You never hesitate." "No, I don't." They wanted to move the trust into a temporary holding entity. Once that happened, reclaiming it would take years, if it was possible at all. So they were going to lock me out, then declare me incompetent. Yes. I leaned back in the chair and stared at the paused image of the woman in my clothes. "Did they say where I was during all this?" I asked. "They claimed you were resting, that you didn't want to be disturbed." I smiled slowly. That sounds like them. I didn't leave the bank immediately. Instead, I asked for records. Every access request, every submitted document, every name that touched the file. The banker complied, because when someone tries to bury you alive, the first thing you do is make sure they leave fingerprints on the shovel. Outside, the sun was setting between glass towers, turning the city gold. I sat in my car and didn't start the engine. I called my daughter. She answered on the third ring, voice bright, too bright. "Mom, you okay? We were just talking about you." "I'm downtown, at the bank." Silence. Just a fraction of a second. "Oh," she replied. "Why?" "I showed them the video," I said. Another pause, longer this time. "I don't know what you mean," she said carefully. "Tell your father that the woman he hired didn't tilt her head the way I do when I lie." Her breath caught. "You're confused," she said weakly. "No," I replied. "I'm awake." I hung up before she could respond. That night, I didn't go home. I checked into a small hotel across from the courthouse, the one with thin walls and good coffee, the kind of place where judges stayed when they didn't want to be seen. I ordered room service, I showered, I slept for 4 uninterrupted hours. At 3:42 a.m., I woke with clarity sharper than cut glass. They thought this was about money. It wasn't. It was about control, about deciding when I stopped being a person and started being a problem. By morning, I had a plan. Not revenge fueled by rage, revenge fueled by precision. And by the time my husband and daughter realized I wasn't confused, wasn't resting, wasn't disappearing quietly, it would already be too late. At 9:08 a.m., my daughter sent a message to the family group chat. Meeting at the legal office at 10. Important. Mom, don't worry about coming. Dad and I will handle everything. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I smiled. The law office sat on the 12th floor of a steel and glass building overlooking the river. Polished, expensive, the kind of place where truth was flexible if the check cleared. I arrived at 9:55, not through the front, through the side entrance reserved for private consultations, the one judges and auditors used when they didn't want attention. The receptionist looked up, startled. "I'm here for the Holloway guardianship meeting," I said calmly. She glanced at her list, frowned. "I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't see. That's because they told you I wouldn't be coming, but I'm the client." Her eyes flicked up to my face. Something in my tone made her straighten. "One moment," she said. She picked up the phone. Inside the conference room, my husband paced. He looked older than he had yesterday. Not wiser, just thinner somehow, like a man whose confidence had sprung a leak. My daughter sat at the table, phone in hand, scrolling furiously. Across from her was Martin Klein, neat haircut, soft voice, eyes that never stopped calculating. "Relax," Klein said smoothly. "Once the petition is filed, the judge will grant temporary authority within 48 hours. After that, she won't be able to touch a single account without your approval." "And if she resists?" my daughter asked. Klein smiled. "Then we document instability. Resistance strengthens the case." My husband exhaled. "She's proud. She'll fight." "That's fine," Klein said. "The system favors concern over consent." The door opened. All three of them turned. I walked in, alive, upright, fully present. The silence was immediate and absolute. My daughter's phone slipped from her hand and clattered onto the table. My husband's mouth opened, then closed. No sound came out. Klein recovered first. Professionals always do. "Mrs. Holloway," he said pleasantly, standing halfway. "This is unexpected. So was the video of me signing my life away. Yet here we are." My daughter found her voice. "Mom, this isn't what it looks like." "No," I said, meeting her eyes. "It's exactly what it looks like. You just didn't expect me to look back." I turned to Klein. "Before we begin," I said, "you should know the bank flagged your submission." Klein's smile tightened. "They often do," he said lightly. "Nothing unusual." "They flagged the biometric discrepancies and the forged behavioral markers." That did it. A flicker of something crossed his face. Irritation. Then caution. "Forgery is a strong word." "So is conspiracy," I replied, "but we'll get to that." I placed my tote bag on the table and opened it slowly. Out came printed documents, bank reports, access logs, a still frame from the video, zoomed in. "Do you see this?" I asked, sliding the image toward my husband. His eyes dropped. The woman's left hand was signing. I'm right-handed. "You hired someone to wear my clothes. You forgot to teach her my body." My daughter's face flushed. "You're blowing this out of proportion." I leaned forward. "Tell me," I said softly, "when did you decide I was easier to replace than to respect?" Her jaw tightened. She didn't answer. I turned to Klein again. You filed under emergency guardianship, claimed cognitive decline. Yes, he said carefully, based on family testimony. Then you won't mind if we bring in an independent evaluation, along with the bank's fraud unit and the state bar. My husband slammed his hand on the table. Enough. He stood up, pointing at me. You're being dramatic. We were trying to protect you. From what? I asked. My own money? You don't live like you need it. You just sit on it while we struggle. There it was. The truth. I weren't worried about me, I said quietly. You were angry I didn't disappear on schedule. Silence again. Klein cleared his throat. Mrs. Holloway, perhaps this conversation should pause. Oh, we're not pausing, I said, standing. We're finishing. I turned to my husband. I trusted you, I said. I built this life with you. He looked away. I raised you, I said to my daughter. Every sacrifice you stand on is mine. Her eyes filled with tears, not regret, but frustration. You always choose control, she said bitterly. No, I replied. I choose consent. I gathered my papers. This meeting is over, I said. The petition will be withdrawn. Klein opened his mouth. Today, I added, or I file my own report. Fraud, identity misuse, elder exploitation. Klein sat back slowly. My husband sagged into his chair. My daughter stared at the table. You win, she whispered. I shook my head. This isn't winning. This is surviving. I walked out without looking back. By noon, the petition was withdrawn. By evening, my accounts were locked. By me. And by nightfall, my phone was silent. For the first time in years. The first call came at 6:11 a.m. I didn't answer it. Neither did I answer the second or the third. By the fourth, I knew something had shifted. People only call that early when they're afraid of losing something they already thought was dawn. I sat at the small desk in my hotel room, sunlight creeping across the carpet, a cup of coffee cooling beside a legal pad filled with tidy handwriting. I'd slept well. That surprised me. No nightmares, no shaking, just clarity. At 7:02 a.m., I made my own call. State Protective Services, the woman answered. My name is Eleanor Holloway, I said calmly. I'd like to report an attempted exploitation case. Mine. There was a pause, then keys clicking. By 9, the story had weight. Not gossip, not family drama, paperwork. A recorded bank alert, a fraudulent video, a guardianship petition withdrawn under threat. That combination changes how people listen. The investigator met me in a neutral office downtown. No warm couches, no sympathy smiles, just facts. Why now? She asked. Because I was almost erased, and because next time it might not be me. She looked up at that. At 10:47 a.m., my husband sent a message. We need to talk. This has gone too far. I deleted it. At 11:15, my daughter emailed. Mom, please, you're hurting the family. I archived it. Because the truth is this. Families don't break when someone speaks up. They break when someone finally stops lying. The call from Martin Klein came just after noon. I answered that one. Mrs. Holloway, he said, voice tight, this is becoming complicated. I replied, it was complicated when you falsified a decline. Now it's documented. There's no need for escalation, he said carefully. We can resolve this privately. I smiled. No, I said, you tried to resolve me. Silence. Then, "What do you want?" I leaned back in my chair. "I want distance. I want my name removed from your client lists. I want a written admission that the petition was withdrawn due to insufficient evidence, and I want it filed today." "That could damage my reputation," he said. "So would a hearing," I replied. He exhaled. "I'll send the document." He did. By mid-afternoon, the locks were changed. Not the doors, the power. I moved my assets into a trust with a professional third-party administrator, one who reported only to me and the court. No family access, no emergency overrides, no soft edges. I revised my will, not out of spite, out of accuracy. My husband was removed as executor. My daughter was no longer listed as decision-maker. The beneficiaries changed too, not to punish, but to reflect reality. I added a clause. Any attempt to contest would trigger an automatic review of prior conduct. Consequences are most effective when they don't need anger to enforce them. That evening, I went home. The house was quiet, too quiet. My husband sat at the kitchen table, hands folded, eyes red. "I never thought you'd go this far," he said. "I never thought you'd go behind my back," I replied. He stood. "We can fix this." I shook my head. "No," I said. "We can end it cleanly." The word landed between us. End. "I'm not filing for divorce. I'm filing for separation, effective immediately." He swallowed hard. "You'll ruin me." "I built you," I said. "You'll survive." He didn't argue. He just looked small. That night, I packed one suitcase. Not because I had to, because I chose to. I moved into a furnished apartment near the river. Temporary, quiet, mine. The first night there, I stood on the balcony and watched the city lights flicker on, one by one. I wasn't lonely. I was unburdened. 3 weeks later, a letter arrived. From my daughter. No accusations, no excuses, just 4 lines. "I didn't think you'd fight. I didn't think you'd win. I thought love meant you'd let it happen. I was wrong." I folded the letter carefully. I didn't respond. Some lessons don't need replies. The quiet came first. Not the peaceful kind people talk about, the kind you have to grow into. This was the kind that arrives after a storm, when everything broken has already fallen and there's nothing left to hold up. I let it come. 6 months passed. Not dramatically, not loudly. Life doesn't change in one explosion. It rearranges itself slowly, with intention. The investigation concluded without headlines, no sirens, no courtroom spectacle, just findings, filed and final. Attempted financial exploitation, misrepresentation, undue influence. Enough to end careers without ever making the news. Martin Klein resigned for personal reasons. His firm issued a quiet apology and settled before a hearing could open the wrong doors. My husband signed the separation agreement without a lawyer. He kept the house. I kept my autonomy. We stopped being a couple long before we stopped being polite. My daughter moved to another state. Distance doesn't always mean healing. Sometimes it's just honesty. I didn't punish. I didn't forgive either. I adjusted. That's what real power looks like when it no longer needs witnesses. My days found a new rhythm. Mornings by the river, a small volunteering role at a legal clinic, not advising, just listening, helping people recognize the first red flags before they became emergencies. Afternoons with my grandchildren, supervised, structured, safe. Love with boundaries is still love. They call me grandma. Not fragile, not confused, just grandma. One afternoon, The same banker who'd stalled the transaction invited me for coffee. "You know," he said, staring his cup, "we changed how we review family-led petitions." I raised an eyebrow. He continued, "We added new safeguards, behavioral confirmations, independent check-ins." I nodded. "Good," I said. "Then it mattered." On the anniversary of that first phone call, I received one final message. From my daughter. "I understand now. I thought inheritance was love delayed. I didn't realize love was consent in real time." I stared at the words for a long moment. Then I replied with a single sentence. "I hope you learn to ask before you take." She didn't respond, and that was enough. I didn't win a war. I reclaimed authorship. My name, my choices, my future. People talk about revenge as fire, but fire destroys the house you're standing in. What I chose was distance, documentation, and dignity. That kind of ending doesn't burn. It lasts.